The 1950s have been sold to us as some kind of golden age, but the reality was far more dangerous than anyone wants to admit. This is not about nostalgia. This is about hard science and documented evidence. Every habit I'm about to expose has been proven risky by decades of research. These are 40 completely normal practices from 1955 that are now banned, illegal, or considered absolutely reckless. This is what daily life actually looked like. I know many of you will say you turned out fine, but the data tells a much darker story. 1. Seatbelts were not standard equipment in American vehicles. Most cars manufactured in 1955 had zero restraint systems installed whatsoever. Families would drive at highway speeds with passengers standing, sitting on laps, or lying across bench seats. The rigid steel dashboards and steering columns meant that occupants struck hard metal surfaces during any collision. Federal motor vehicle safety standards did not mandate seatbelts until 1968, after decades of mounting fatalities. Crash test research proved that lap and shoulder belts reduce fatal injury risk by 45% in front seats. Modern requirements emerged after automotive safety engineering demonstrated how restraints save lives during collisions. Today, not wearing a seatbelt results in tickets and fines in all 50 states. 2. Medical facilities allowed tobacco use everywhere, including operating rooms and patient recovery areas. Doctors would use tobacco products at nursing stations immediately after surgical procedures. Patients recovering from respiratory illnesses and heart attacks would have tobacco use in their hospital beds, often surrounded by oxygen equipment. Even maternity wards permitted tobacco use throughout the facilities. Medical research in the 1960s and 70s established the clear connection between tobacco exposure and respiratory damage, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. The American Medical Association did not formally recognize this as a major health hazard until 1964. Today, every hospital in America is a tobacco-free facility by law. Studies show that secondhand exposure increases heart disease risk by 25 to 30% in non-smokers. 3. Pesticide trucks sprayed DDT throughout residential neighborhoods with no advance warning or safety protocols. Trucks would drive through suburbs, releasing thick clouds of chemical fog for mosquito control during dinner hours when people were outside. Residents would be exposed to the spray while gardening, walking, barbecuing, or sitting on porches. Windows stayed open in summer heat, allowing chemicals to drift directly into homes and contaminate food on dinner tables. Environmental research in the 1960s revealed that DDT accumulated in human tissues and disrupted hormone systems. The chemical was linked to reproductive problems and potential neurological effects in humans. The EPA banned DDT for agricultural use in 1972, after extensive toxicological studies. Today, pesticide applications require advance notice, certified applicators, and strict safety protocols with mandatory evacuation requirements. 4. Lawn darts were sold as casual backyard recreation for family gatherings and parties. These projectiles consisted of weighted metal tips on foot-long shafts with plastic fins designed for long-distance throws. Players would launch them high into the air toward ground targets with no safety zones, protective equipment, or distance requirements. The weighted tips could easily pierce human tissue and cause severe puncture wounds to anyone in the landing zone. Emergency room data documented approximately 6,100 injuries requiring medical treatment between 1978 and 1986. Biomechanical analysis confirmed that lawn darts falling from typical throwing heights generated sufficient force to penetrate bone and cause life-threatening injuries. The Consumer Product Safety Commission banned lawn darts in 1988 after determining no safe way to use the product existed. 5. Asbestos was used in thousands of everyday household products throughout the 1950s. Ceiling tiles, floor tiles, insulation, siding, roofing materials, and even ironing board covers contained asbestos fibers. Homeowners would sand, cut, and drill these materials during home improvement projects with no protective equipment whatsoever. The microscopic fibers would become airborne and remain suspended in indoor air for hours after any disturbance. Medical research established that asbestos exposure causes mesothelioma and lung cancer, conditions that often do not manifest for 20 to 40 years after exposure. No safe level of asbestos exposure exists according to medical science. Once the EPA banned most asbestos products in 1989, with specific regulations prohibiting residential uses. Modern asbestos abatement requires certified professionals with specialized equipment and full containment procedures. 6. Mercury thermometers were standard household items that frequently broke during normal use. When glass thermometers shattered, liquid mercury would scatter into silvery spheres across floors and countertops. People would attempt to clean up mercury with brooms or vacuum cleaners, which aerosolize the toxic metal throughout living spaces. Toxicological research established that mercury exposure causes tremors, cognitive impairment, and kidney damage. Inhalation of mercury vapor allows the heavy metal to enter the bloodstream and accumulate in organs, including the brain. When the EPA now classifies mercury as a severe environmental toxin, requiring specialized cleanup procedures and professional remediation. Digital thermometers have replaced mercury versions in most household applications since the 1990s. 7. Lead-based paint was the universal standard for residential and commercial applications. This paint contained up to 50% lead by dry weight, chosen specifically for brilliant colors and exceptional durability. Every wall, ceiling, door, and window frame was coated in these toxic formulations throughout homes and buildings. Renovation work would create lead dust that contaminated entire living spaces. Medical research established that blood lead levels as low as 5 micrograms per deciliter cause measurable cognitive impairment and organ damage. And the effects are permanent and irreversible across all age groups. The Consumer Product Safety Commission banned lead paint for residential use in 1978. Modern lead abatement has become a multi-billion-dollar industry based on toxicology and neuroscience research. 8. Physicians had different views on tobacco during pregnancy in 1955. Medical understanding evolved significantly after obstetric research established connections between maternal tobacco use and reduced birth weight, premature birth, and increased infant mortality. Studies found that exposure reduces oxygen supply to the fetus. The Surgeon General's 1964 report marked the beginning of medical consensus on this topic. Modern prenatal care absolutely prohibits tobacco use based on decades of research. 9. Backyard trash burning was a standard weekly household chore. Families would pile newspapers, plastics, treated wood, and chemicals into metal barrels and ignite them. The thick smoke would drift into neighbors' yards and through open windows. Environmental Protection Agency research documented that backyard burning releases significantly higher concentrations of toxic pollutants than controlled incinerators. Studies found that residential burning produces dioxins and particulate matter linked to respiratory disease. Most municipalities banned open burning by the 1980s, implementing organized waste management and recycling programs instead. 10. Raw gasoline served as the standard hand cleaner for mechanics. Men would keep open buckets of fuel in garages, dipping rags into gasoline to scrub oil from their skin. Industrial hygiene research established that dermal absorption of petroleum products causes systemic toxicity affecting blood and liver function. Benzene in gasoline is a known carcinogen that enters the bloodstream through skin contact. The extreme flammability created obvious ignition risks. Modern occupational safety standards require barrier creams, gloves, and citrus-based solvents. OSHA now classifies gasoline as a hazardous substance, requiring protective equipment during occupational use. 11. Used motor oil disposal meant pouring quarts into backyard soil. After home oil changes, the standard practice was digging holes and dumping petroleum waste directly into the ground. Hydrogeological research mapped how petroleum products migrate through soil, contaminating aquifers. A single quart of motor oil can contaminate up to 250,000 gallons of drinking water. The Resource Conservation and Recovery Act of 1976 classified used oil as hazardous material requiring proper recycling. Environmental Protection Agency enforcement includes fines up to $50,000 per day for illegal dumping. 12. Baby oil replaced sunscreen as the primary beach product. People would coat themselves in mineral oil specifically to intensify sun exposure and accelerate tanning. Dermatological research established the direct relationship between ultraviolet radiation and melanoma. Studies found that just 5 severe sunburns before age 20 increase melanoma risk by 80%. UV radiation causes direct DNA damage in skin cells, which the American Academy of Dermatology issued sun protection guidelines in 1972. Modern recommendations call for SPF 30 or higher with reapplication every 2 hours during exposure. 13. Families conserved heating costs by sharing the same bathwater. The tub would be filled once, and each member would bathe in succession. By the final bath, water was clouded with accumulated dirt and bacteria. Microbiological research established that warm bathwater creates ideal conditions for bacterial growth and cross-contamination. Staphylococcus and fungal organisms transfer easily between bathers and shared water. Public health improvements and affordable water heating eliminated this habit by the 1960s. Modern plumbing systems make individual bathing both affordable and standard practice. 14. Bicycle helmets did not exist as consumer products for cyclists of any age. People rode bikes through traffic, on highways, and at high speeds with no head protection whatsoever. Falls onto concrete or asphalt resulted in skull fractures and severe traumatic brain injuries. Biomechanical engineering research demonstrated that helmets absorb impact energy and distribute forces across larger surface areas, dramatically reducing injury severity. Studies found that bicycle helmets reduce head injury risk by 60% and brain injury risk by 58% across all cycling activities. The first consumer bicycle helmets were not marketed until 1975, after decades of preventable head injuries. Modern helmet standards require passing rigorous impact tests at various velocities and angles before products can be sold. 15. Raw chicken was routinely rinsed in the kitchen sink before cooking. Home economics courses explicitly taught this method as proper meat preparation. Water would splash across countertops, spreading Campylobacter and Salmonella throughout the kitchen. USDA research used high-speed photography to demonstrate that washing poultry spreads bacteria up to 3 feet from the sink. Studies found detectable contamination on nearby produce and cutting boards after rinsing chicken. The only method that kills foodborne pathogens is cooking poultry to 165 degrees Fahrenheit internal temperature. The USDA formally advised against washing raw poultry in 2005. 16. Undercooked pork was commonly served in American households. Before modern agricultural practices, pork carried substantial risks of parasitic infection, particularly Trichinella spiralis. This roundworm causes trichinosis with severe gastrointestinal distress and muscle pain. Public health data from the 1940s showed approximately 400 trichinosis cases annually with multiple fatalities. Agricultural research and mandatory inspection programs implemented in the 1950s dramatically reduced parasite prevalence. Modern farming practices have virtually eliminated trichinosis from domestic pork supplies. The USDA revised cooking temperatures in 2011 to 145 degrees Fahrenheit based on updated parasitology research. 17. Prescription stimulants were routinely dispensed for weight loss. Physicians would prescribe powerful medications designed to suppress appetite with minimal medical justification. These medications caused elevated heart rate, increased blood pressure, insomnia, and psychological dependence. Pharmacological research in the 1960s and 70s established severe cardiovascular risks and high dependency potential. Studies documented cases of heart attacks and strokes directly linked to these weight loss medications. Modern weight management relies on lifestyle modifications and carefully monitored pharmaceutical interventions for patients meeting specific medical criteria only. 18. Tobacco companies used unrestricted advertising across all media platforms with no health warnings required. Advertisements appeared in family magazines, television programs, and even medical journals claiming health benefits. Marketing featured doctors endorsing specific brands and athletes promoting tobacco products. Behavioral psychology research demonstrated that pervasive advertising establishes positive associations and normalizes dangerous products. Studies found that exposure to tobacco advertising significantly increased initiation rates across demographics. The Federal Trade Commission and FDA eventually restricted tobacco advertising after decades of unregulated marketing. Modern tobacco products must carry prominent health warnings and face severe advertising restrictions, including television and radio bans. 19. Residential furniture featured dangerous mechanical mechanisms with inadequate safety testing. Folding beds, hide-a-beds, and reclining furniture used spring-loaded mechanisms that could snap shut unexpectedly. These mechanisms frequently failed or were incorrectly assembled by consumers. Hardware would loosen over time, creating pinch points and crushing hazards. The Consumer Product Safety Commission documented numerous injuries related to mechanical furniture failures throughout the 1950s and 60s. Engineering analysis revealed that even properly assembled units could fail due to design flaws. Modern furniture safety standards require rigorous testing and fail-safe mechanisms. The Consumer Product Safety Improvement Act established mandatory safety standards for all residential furniture. 20. Household cleaning products and chemicals use simple screw-top caps with no safety features. Bleach, ammonia, drain cleaners, and other corrosive substances sat in unlocked cabinets accessible to anyone. The bottles had no warning labels about mixing chemicals or proper ventilation requirements. Accidental chemical exposures resulted in thousands of emergency room visits annually. The Poison Prevention Packaging Act of 1970 mandated child-resistant closures for hazardous household substances and improved labeling requirements. Studies found that proper packaging and warning labels reduced accidental poisoning incidents by 45% within 5 years. Modern designs undergo testing to verify effectiveness and include detailed safety information. 21. Leaded gasoline was the universal fuel standard sold at every gas station across America. Tetraethyl lead was added to gasoline as an anti-knock agent, releasing lead particles into the air with every vehicle's exhaust. Urban areas experienced constant exposure to airborne lead contamination from traffic. People would breathe lead-contaminated air while walking down streets, waiting at bus stops, or sitting in traffic. Medical research established that chronic low-level lead exposure causes cognitive impairment and cardiovascular damage. Studies found direct correlations between leaded gasoline use and measurable population IQ decreases. The EPA phased out leaded gasoline beginning in 1973, completing the transition by 1996. Modern unleaded fuel and catalytic converters have dramatically reduced automotive lead emissions. 22. Teflon-coated cookware contained perfluorooctanoic acid, a persistent environmental contaminant. PFOA was used in manufacturing non-stick coatings for pans and kitchen appliances throughout the 1950s. When heated, these coatings would off-gas toxic fumes into kitchen air. People cooked daily meals with no awareness of chemical exposure. Toxicological research established that PFOA accumulates in blood and organs for years. Studies linked PFOA to thyroid disease, pregnancy complications, and certain cancers. The EPA classified PFOA as an emerging contaminant in 2006. Modern cookware largely eliminated PFOA, though contamination persists in water supplies. 23. Automotive interiors featured solid steel dashboards and rigid metal steering columns. Designers prioritized aesthetics over occupant protection, creating cabins filled with hard metal knobs and sharp-edged trim. During frontal collisions, drivers would be impaled on steering columns or suffer severe chest trauma. Automotive safety research in the 1960s revolutionized interior design philosophy. Federal motor vehicle safety standards implemented in 1968 required energy-absorbing steering columns and padded dashboards. Modern vehicles incorporate crumple zones that sacrifice the car's structure to protect occupants with airbags and collapsible steering columns. 24. Shoe stores operated fluoroscope X-ray machines for routine customer fittings. These devices allowed shoppers to see foot bones inside potential shoe purchases through unshielded radiation imaging. Customers would stand in the machines for 20 to 30 seconds multiple times during shopping trips, receiving direct radiation exposure with each fitting. Sales staff operated these machines dozens of times daily throughout their shifts with no radiation protection whatsoever. No medical justification existed for this radiation exposure. It was purely a sales gimmick to sell more shoes. Radiation research established that cumulative exposure significantly increased cancer risk for both customers and store employees. These machines delivered radiation doses up to 13 times higher than modern chest X-rays. Most states banned these devices by the early 1960s after public health officials recognized the completely unnecessary cancer risk. 25. Amateur chemistry sets and home laboratory kits contain genuinely hazardous materials available to consumers. Sets marketed for home experimentation included samples of radioactive materials, concentrated acids, Honorian reactive metals. Chemical components included substances now classified as extremely dangerous, including cyanide compounds and metallic sodium. No protective equipment, proper ventilation requirements, or disposal instructions were included with these kits. Hobbyists would conduct experiments in basements and garages with no safety training whatsoever. Toxicology research established that even brief exposures to these chemicals pose significant health risks. The Consumer Product Safety Commission implemented strict regulations controlling chemistry set contents during the 1970s and 80s, requiring safety equipment and detailed warnings. 26. Fiberglass insulation was installed in homes without any protective equipment or safety warnings. Homeowners and contractors would handle raw fiberglass batting with bare hands during installation projects. The microscopic glass fibers would penetrate skin, causing severe irritation and become airborne throughout living spaces. People would breathe fiberglass particles during and after installation with no respiratory protection. Medical research established that fiberglass causes chronic respiratory irritation and potential lung damage with prolonged exposure. Modern building codes require protective equipment, including respirators, gloves, and full coverage clothing during installation. Contemporary fiberglass products include encapsulation and handling instructions to minimize fiber release and exposure. 27. Kerosene space heaters operated indoors without ventilation requirements or safety shutoffs. Families used portable kerosene heaters as primary heating sources in bedrooms and living spaces throughout winter months. The heaters would burn continuously overnight in enclosed rooms with closed windows. Carbon monoxide and other combustion byproducts accumulated to dangerous levels in sleeping areas. People experienced headaches, nausea, and respiratory symptoms without understanding the connection to indoor heating. Fire safety statistics documented thousands of residential fires annually from tipped heaters and fuel spills. The Consumer Product Safety Commission established mandatory safety standards in 1984. Modern portable heaters require tip-over shutoffs, oxygen depletion sensors, and strict emissions controls. 28. Aluminum trays for frozen dinners were heated to high temperatures. These convenient frozen meals were packaged in aluminum and cooked at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for extended periods. Consumers would scrape metal utensils across the soft aluminum surface while eating, creating visible scratches. Acidic foods like tomato sauce would react with the aluminum, only increasing metal leaching into food. Modern food packaging uses anodized aluminum or BPA-free plastics designed to withstand heating without significant chemical migration. The FDA regulates food contact substances and requires manufacturers to demonstrate safety under intended use conditions. 29. Mercurochrome was the standard antiseptic applied to cuts and wounds in households across America. This bright red topical solution contained approximately 2% mercury in organic compound form, readily absorbed through broken skin. People would liberally apply it to wounds multiple times daily until healing completed with no understanding of mercury toxicity. Pharmaceutical research revealed that mercury-based antiseptics provided minimal antimicrobial benefit while introducing unnecessary toxic metal exposure to users. And the FDA stopped approving mercury-containing topical antiseptics as safe and effective in 1998 after reviewing toxicology data. Modern wound care uses hydrogen peroxide, iodine-based solutions, or simple soap and water, all proven more effective without toxic metal exposure risks. 30. Mobile homes manufactured before the 1980s contained extremely high formaldehyde levels in construction materials. Particle board, plywood, and insulation all off-gassed formaldehyde continuously in confined living spaces. Poor ventilation and high material concentrations created toxic indoor air quality. Residents experienced burning eyes, respiratory irritation, nosebleeds, and chronic headaches from exposure. Medical research established that formaldehyde causes nasopharyngeal cancer and respiratory disease. Studies found formaldehyde levels in mobile homes often exceeded safety standards by 10 to 20 times. Housing and Urban Development implemented formaldehyde emission standards in 1985. Modern manufactured homes must meet strict formaldehyde limits and include improved ventilation. 31. Industrial and institutional cafeterias serve food on uninsulated metal trays that became dangerously hot. These stamped steel trays would be heated to extreme temperatures in commercial ovens, along with the food they contained. Workers and customers would burn their hands touching the metal surfaces when retrieving meals. The trays had no insulation, heat warnings, or protective barriers of any kind. Food safety standards were minimal, and meals would sit at unsafe temperatures for extended periods between preparation and service. Occupational safety research established significant burn risks and developed comprehensive food safety protocols. Modern institutional cafeterias use insulated serving systems, temperature monitoring equipment, and strict food safety guidelines. The USDA and FDA now regulate commercial food service with comprehensive safety and sanitation standards. 32. Drinking water directly from garden hoses was common summer practice. These rubber and vinyl hoses were manufactured with plasticizers and heavy metals, including lead, that leached into standing water. Water that sat in hoses would reach temperatures exceeding 130 degrees Fahrenheit, accelerating chemical migration. Studies found that water from garden hoses can contain lead levels exceeding EPA's safe drinking water standards by 10 to 100 times. Consumer Product Safety Commission testing revealed that many hoses contain phthalates and BPA. Modern regulations require hoses marketed for drinking to meet NSF International Drinking Water Safety Standards. 33. Radioactive consumer products promised health benefits through atomic energy. Products marketed in the 1950s included radium-laced water and radioactive pendants worn against skin. Advertisements claimed that radiation exposure would increase energy and cure various ailments. Some products contained radium-226, which has a 1,600-year half-life and concentrates in bones when ingested. Medical research on radiation exposure established definitive links between radiation and cancer. The Radium Girls case helped establish occupational radiation safety standards. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission now strictly controls radioactive materials requiring licenses for possession and use. 34. Radium-painted watch dials were standard consumer products marketed as convenient timepieces. Watch manufacturers used radium-based luminous paint to create glow-in-the-dark displays. People wore these radioactive watches against their skin 24 hours daily for years. The watches emitted continuous low-level radiation exposure throughout wearers' lifetimes. Factory workers who painted dials suffered devastating health effects, including bone cancer and jaw necrosis. Medical research established that chronic radiation exposure significantly increases cancer risk. The Radium Girls case exposed the dangers, but radium watches remained common until the 1960s. Modern watches use non-radioactive phosphorescent materials or tritium in sealed tubes meeting safety standards. 35. Standard plate glass in vehicles and buildings shattered into large razor-sharp shards. This annealed glass would fracture into dangerous pieces with extremely sharp edges, capable of causing severe lacerations. Automotive accidents frequently resulted in glass-related injuries more severe than impact trauma. Engineering research developed laminated and tempered glass alternatives, but adoption was slow. Tempered glass undergoes heat treatment, causing it to shatter into small, relatively harmless granules. Federal motor vehicle safety standards began requiring laminated windshields in 1966 and tempered glass for side windows in 1968. Building codes adopted similar requirements for safety glazing. 36. Sugar industry marketing convinced consumers that refined sugar provided essential nutrition and health benefits. Advertisements explicitly claimed that sugar delivered quick energy, improved mental performance, and constituted necessary calories for daily function. Some campaigns suggested that people who limited sugar intake might experience fatigue and reduced cognitive performance. Nutritional science research established definitive links between excessive sugar consumption and obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and metabolic syndrome. The sugar industry actively funded research designed to minimize these health connections and shift blame to dietary fats. Investigative reporting in 2016 revealed that the Sugar Research Foundation paid Harvard scientists in the 1960s to downplay sugar's health risks while vilifying fat. The American Heart Association now recommends strict limits on added sugar consumption for all age groups. 37. Public recreational equipment was designed with extreme heights and unforgiving hard surfaces. Metal slides reaching 12 to 15 feet high would become scorching hot under summer sun, causing severe burns. The rotating equipment spun fast enough to throw users off at high velocity onto hard-packed surfaces. Equipment was installed over packed dirt or concrete, providing zero impact absorption for falls. Consumer Product Safety Commission data documented that recreational equipment injuries caused approximately 200,000 emergency room visits annually across all age groups. Biomechanical research established that falls from heights above 6 to 8 feet onto hard surfaces frequently cause severe injuries, including fractures and head trauma. Modern recreational facility standards require impact-absorbing surfaces like engineered wood fiber or rubber meeting specific depth and density requirements. 38. Open containers of certain beverages in vehicles were legal in many jurisdictions. Drivers could have open bottles while operating vehicles, and passengers could consume freely. Law enforcement focused primarily on obviously impaired drivers rather than preventing consumption. Traffic safety research established irrefutable connections between impairment and crash risk. Studies found crash risk doubles at certain levels. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration estimates that impaired driving caused approximately 25,000 deaths annually during the 1970s and 80s. States implemented open container laws throughout the 1980s and 90s. All 50 states now prohibit open containers in passenger compartments. 39. Industrial and recreational rotating platforms operated with no speed limits or safety features. In these heavy steel platforms could be accelerated to extreme rotational speeds, creating dangerous centrifugal forces. Users would be thrown off violently, landing on hard surfaces from significant heights and distances. The centrifugal force generated was strong enough to cause serious injuries, including broken bones, dislocations, and head trauma. No padding, speed governors, emergency stops, or soft landing surfaces existed on these installations. Biomechanical research established that the G-forces experienced could cause loss of consciousness and internal injuries. Safety data showed thousands of injuries annually from rotating equipment. Modern recreational and industrial equipment includes mandatory speed limiters, emergency stops, and impact-absorbing surfaces surrounding all rotating machinery. 40. Formaldehyde-based permanent press treatments were applied to clothing and bedding. Manufacturers treated fabrics with formaldehyde resins to prevent wrinkling and maintain crisp appearances. These chemicals remained in textiles and were released into indoor air and absorbed through skin contact. People slept on sheets and wore clothes saturated with formaldehyde every single day. Toxicological research established that formaldehyde exposure causes respiratory irritation, skin sensitivity, and has been classified as a human carcinogen. Studies found that formaldehyde off-gassing from textiles contributed significantly to indoor air pollution. The EPA now regulates formaldehyde emissions from composite wood products. Modern fabric treatments use safer alternatives. And manufacturers must meet strict emission standards established in 2010. Every single practice we just covered has been eliminated or dramatically restricted based on research, medical evidence, and hard data. This is not opinion. This is documented science that changed how we live. The people in 1955 were not stupid. They were operating with the best information available at the time. What changed was our knowledge, our testing methods, and our willingness to adapt when evidence proved we were wrong. Here's what should concern you. We are absolutely doing things right now in 2025 that future generations will look back on with the same shock. We just do not know which practices yet. That is exactly why continued research, questioning assumptions, and in demanding evidence matters more than nostalgia. Science does not care about the good old days. It cares about what actually works and what actually keeps people safe. That is the honest truth. Go ahead and tell me in the comments how you turned out fine. The data says otherwise. This has been Lying Legends, and I will see you in the next video.